We're constantly looking outward for other people to tell us what is right. The main point underneath all of it has to do with listening, like reconnecting to actually hearing what is being asked internally.
Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to the I Am Pain Free podcast. Today is really fun. I've got Sarah Vittori here, Sarah's got some really interesting background and experiences in pain relief. She talks a lot about holistic approaches to pain relief. She even goes through and talks in detail about the MELT method, which I thought was really interesting, and had a really good conversation around that, as well as peak performance for athletes. This is something that she focuses on. So really exciting things that she's doing to help the world be I Am Pain Free. So stick around. It's going to be a fun episode. Here she is. Hey, this is Rob Renee with I Am Pain Free podcast. We've got an exciting one today. We've got Sarah Vittori here with us. How are you, Sarah?
Good. Thanks so much for having me, Rob. Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So in our conversations, Sarah does a lot of different things. So I'm excited to talk through all the things that you do, and then we'll dig into some details on some of those, because I think it's just very, very relevant to people who are going to be listening to this podcast. So why don't you just introduce yourself and tell people a little history about who you are and then how you got there.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much. So I am the owner of two businesses. This is the start of my 9th year, recording this in January. And so I run a peak performance company called Competitive Advantage, where we offer peak performance services, mental toughness coaching, injury recovery, healing of the body for athletes and other performers or high achievers who are wanting to optimize their potential. And then I also run a company called Soma Synthesis Studios, where we're creating spaces for healing, integration, and expansion. I have a variety of different trainings and degrees, but I specialize in working with nervous system, health, and healing. So I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm a biodynamic cranial sacral therapist. I am a level 2 MELT method instructor, which I think we'll probably get in today, which is a modality that works with our connective tissue system to release stuck stress. So I offer hands-on healing and retreats, and also one-on-one virtual coaching and virtual healing sessions. And yeah, just doing all the different things.
That's exciting. You do so many things. It's like, wow, where do we start? But what got you into doing this type of work? What piqued your interest in doing this?
Yeah, I think so many of us who are entrepreneurs, it starts with our own, shall we say, crisis of sorts. But I was a guidance counselor in a high school and stepped into that environment and was like, uh-oh, no one taught me about systems and politics and things. And I became miserable pretty quick. And I had always been a high achiever, a perfectionist, a doer, and started to notice in my strive for excellence at my job, my body falling apart completely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And when I stepped in, my father, who was a peak performance consultant and 40 years deep in the field of performance psychology,
wow,
come and work with me. And I was like, oh, wow. So it was a lovely opportunity. And while I was still being a guidance counselor, I went through this somatic experiencing training, which is a modality that helps us connect to our nervous system and learn our wiring as mammals and how sort of our survival governs our behavior and the choices that we make, and whether or not things are firing in ways they shouldn't be firing at a nervous system level. And so as I did this training, I really started to wake up to how shut down everything had been in my body. So for a lot of us, shutdown could be depressed. I can't get out of bed. I can't move. But for a lot of us type A'ers, our shutdown is stuck on a hamster wheel, can't get off it, and doing and not stopping. And that's a lot of cortisol and adrenaline to keep going and pumping. And that breaks down our bodies. And I started to get diagnosed with all these different illnesses while I was working at the school and going through this training, and really just was like, I really have to do something different. Something has to change. So 5 years in, I had finished my somatic experiencing training. That's a 3.5-year process.
Wow.
And I took a medical leave from work to suss out what was going on physically for me, and then never went back. I started my own business. I went to a bunch of doctors that all told me different things that I had that weren't connected at all. And I left the traditional medical sphere to navigate my issues and started to deeply tune inward and heal my nervous system and heal a lot of the chronic pain and illness that I had been in lots of different ways, and started to take clients and work with athletes and work with other busy humans like me whose bodies were falling apart.
Right.
Yeah, just following those threads that light me up.
That's really, really interesting, path. I love that, you did it through your journey as well, right? Which is I find fascinating, because I think a lot of us get to that point where it's like, hey, I had this issue and I ended up figuring it out, and guess what? Now I'm helping others, and I think I'm going through one of those situations literally right now, right? So it's going to be fun to get on the other side of that journey and say, guess what? I did it as well, and I'm gonna help people through this. So one of the things you mentioned, obviously chronic pain, right? That is a thing that we talk a lot about, just pain in general with this podcast. So you mentioned a couple of things that you had done back then for yourself. So I'm interested in that, if we talk about, and then let's jump into the training you were talking about that's related to your connected tissue and how you help people with that and what that's called, so we make sure people understand what that is. And then we'll get into some more of the more recent stuff that you're doing. How's that sound?
That sounds great. And the part 1 and part 2 kind of overlap, because finding the melt method for me was really the huge shift in finding actual relief in my body. So the first couple of years of my healing journey were a lot of reconnecting to my own rhythms. There's so many ways that we're conditioned to operate within these different time constraints, particularly when we work 9 to 5s or we work particular jobs or we have kids. And I have 2, 19 and 11. And there are foundations and basics that we can go back to within tapping into our innate cycles, being able to, and I had the luxury of, I was on a medical leave at the beginning of my journey, and I was able to get up when I needed to and not have to get up every morning. I was getting up at 4:30 and bringing my son to daycare before I was going to the school, and staying till 3 or 4 and then picking him up, and then I'm home, but you're never stopping.
Right.
And so I had the privilege, right? Not all of us have that, of being able to slow down enough to take naps in between clients, or go and bring myself into deep meditative states multiple times a day in little bits, right, in between the busyness, to be able to take the time to prepare foods that would be generative for my system, to be able to drink enough water and have a bathroom. So, with these poor teachers, and there's no time to pee. There's literally no time to pee, right?
You never really think about that, do you? I mean,
you don't. But these are basic things that a lot of us forget to orient back to when we're sick, when we're struggling. And if those foundational pieces aren't being met, then we're not going to feel better.
Right. That's a really good point, because I love to tell people that there's 4 foundational things that you need to do, just regardless of who you are or where you are or what you need to do. And a couple of those you just brought up, right? It's like you need to drink enough water. Most people just don't have enough, and then I can totally see that as a teacher, like, hey, I can't drink right now because then I'm going to have to pee, and it's going to be right in the middle of class, and I can't do that. So,
and it seems silly, but it's so true. And as a guidance counselor, same thing. I'm in and out of meetings all day. I would stare at my bottle of water and evaluate, okay, I'm thirsty, but I really don't want to have to be able to leave.
Right.
It's silly.
So just little things like that. Like, that's it. And then the other one's grounding, right? You need to go get your feet in the ground. When do you do that? When you're in a classroom all day long, right?
And that was a huge piece also of my healing, of being able to get outside, right? Feet on earth, and also sunlight.
That was going to be my third was sunlight, right? Because you need, those are like 3 basic elements that our body, God created our bodies to utilize those. And man, if you cut yourself off of water and grounding and sun, then there's three of the essentials that you need. The other one, like is oxygen, right? So it's like you cut yourself off of three out of those four, and your body's going to be struggling, period. So that's
absolutely
really interesting. I hadn't thought of a teacher having those issues until you brought it up. I'm like, well, duh, of course they would have that issue. So yeah, that's real intriguing.
And maybe we would get outside at the end of the day, but you're not getting those really good early morning sunlight hours that are the most supportive for our system, right? So there are all sorts of ways that when we're in different environments, we sacrifice certain things. And so the going back to basics for me was essential. And another really important piece here was starting to honor and reconnect to my truth. There were ways that I was really ignoring and shoving and not even knowing what I wanted, what I needed, how I felt. And so when we do that and we're shoving things, that all is energy. And that all then stacks and creates densities in the body and creates ways that it spills out in unhelpful ways. And so being able to take the time and have the space to, okay, as a mom and as someone who was trying to start a business, like there's not a lot of time. And so having more space to tune into what's important and what I even needed was an enormous stepping point towards things starting to feel better and resolve in my own system.
Got it. Yeah, I like it. So now let's talk about the big blue foam thing that you have. I love my foam rollers. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So then I found Melt, which is the Melt method was created by Sue Hitzman. She is a manual therapist, originated out in New York, and she was trying to recreate her treatments on the table. Because she would have these experiences where people come to her office, they'd feel great when they left, and then an hour later, 2 hours later, the next day, everything tightens up again, everything clicks back into old patterns. And so she was really trying to figure out, okay, like what could people be doing on their own so that they continue to feel good long-term in between treatments.
Right.
And so it's so cool. And so she has been one of the initial sort of researchers and spearheaders within the different fascial communities and this new conversation around connective tissue health, and put together a modality that blends lots of different orientations, Eastern and Western medicine together. And it works with these little rubber balls.
Okay.
And super soft foam rollers. So this isn't your traditional, very hard in the roller, I'm digging out real good those muscles. This is a gentle modality that works to hydrate our connective tissue system, which is like this 3D fluid matrix that houses all of our muscles and our bones. And so when it's working really well, it's pliable, it's flexible, it moves, it supports and stabilizes our joints. It works together with our nervous system because our nervous system receptors live in the tissue, lives in the connective tissue. And so when it's working, we sleep great, we digest our food, we don't have pain. Super interesting. When you learn these treatments, you learn hand and foot treatments. Your hand treatments is flushing your fluid system all the way up in the neck and the shoulders. Your foot treatments getting all up the legs into the hips and low back. And then there are tons of different sequences on the roller that help release stuck stress from the body. It helps promote the different healing mechanisms within the different systems in the body. It also decreases pain. For me, someone who carries chronic pain, I fell on my tailbone at the beginning of last year had a whole another healing journey. It was a healing journey. Took the edge off enough so that after a hard day, or you work out, because I work a lot with athletes after a hard competition, or you're putting a lot of stress on the body, it takes the edge off by getting on the roller and doing a sequence or two. But it's quite phenomenal. It feels like magic, but it's my favorite combo. It's rooted in so much science of the different mechanisms in the body. And it's really a game changer for those of us who are recovering from injury or navigating a body that has chronic fatigue or chronic pain, because it does take that edge off so that we then can function enough.
Got it. Yeah, I like that, because I'd like to talk to a lot of people about, how to help get well naturally, right? And God gave us this amazing, incredible body that if you give it the right things, it will heal itself, right? So it sounds to me like that modality, which I believed. I've used foam rollers for decades, so I love it. Sometimes I use the hard ones. Those are a little more difficult, but they are so amazing in the respect that you do a hard workout, for example, and you do the roller, and man, it just releases like stress and gets your body back to functioning maybe the way it was supposed to. So then clears out the fatigue in your muscles, right? So
and it's amazing because really, like, when we think of hydration, we think about, oh, I'm just going to drink a lot of water. And the problem with that is, like, our connective tissue is very much like a sponge. Okay. And so if you think of a dry sponge, if I take a dry sponge and I pour a bunch of water over that, it's just going to seep off. It's not going to go in. So it's why most of us, when we drink a lot of water, we just up all night peeing. Right? We're not like actually absorbing it. So this particular modality works to really foam the sponge, like really draw the fluid into the tissue and then flush it throughout all the different parts so that it really provides so much more space for the body so that we're not get those knots, all those knots that we feel, or the tightness, like all of that is dehydrated connective tissue. So this is really helping to experience hydration in your system in a very new way.
Yeah, that's very cool. So how long did you work? Did you go back and work for your dad, or what did you just go on to your own practice? I don't remember that connection.
Such a good question. So while I was at the school, I mentored with him. So I did really extensive training while I was doing the somatic experiencing training and learning his frameworks and the different peak performance principles. And so during those years, I did observation sessions, and then he did mentorship sessions with me. And so that when I left the school, I immediately started to see clients, and I had a referral.
Awesome.
He was so filled.
Yeah, what a great referral, right? Have your dad say, hey, I know someone who might be able to help you, right?
Yeah. And then I started to evolve. It's how I got into it. I donated my time to a gymnastics club and started to watch bodies and watch nervous systems. And then they hired me. And so for about 5 years before COVID, I was in a gymnastics gym working with kids who were experiencing a lot of fear, having blocks, or recovering from injury and coming back. So we do a lot of melt, do a lot of mental toughness, a lot of working with our own stress physiology so that kids could have success with scary skills.
Right. Yeah, that's stuff I'm not going to do. That's for sure. That's really interesting. So how long? So you did the gymnastics thing for, what did you say, 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, I was in there once a week for 5 years and started to develop. And over that time, I work with all athletes in all different kinds of sports. So from as young as I've worked with kids as young as 7, divers and gymnasts, and then all the way through adults, professional athletes, Olympic level athletes. I work a lot with high school and collegiate athletes. I would say that's the range that finds me a lot. A lot of performance problems start in high school when it counts and kids want to play in college. And so all of a sudden pressure is on. So I've done that. And then, over this past year, my dad has been moving into retirement. Actually, at the beginning of this month, I bought the business. So
that's exciting. Congratulations.
It's very exciting. Thanks. This is the first podcast I've been on where I got to say I own 2 businesses.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting that you're able to take over his practice and help people. What got your dad interested in doing that way back when he started?
Yeah, he was a tennis player. Oh. Yeah, he went to UMass Amherst, and he was a D1 tennis player and a semi-pro, and taught for a number of years and experienced his own journey, and then got really into exploring performance psychology and peak performance.
That's super cool. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So, and it's like one of the things you mentioned as well during our conversations was being able to help people remotely, right? Which is, I think, really cool in the respect that our world today is so connected via this like technology, like we're doing now, right? Like I'm in Dallas, Texas, and you're in Massachusetts, right? Yeah. So it's like we're not even close geographically, but we're able to have this amazing conversation. And so how are you helping people in similar situations?
Yeah, great question. So I do, depending on what the presenting issue is, there's a variety of ways that I can work with people. So I do offer just like a distance healing session. As if you were in my office, you could lie down or sit up or and have your eyes closed and just receive. And I work in the quantum field and hold different parts of the body in order to facilitate the nervous system and the different fluid systems in the body to heal.
Okay.
And so that's one way that people utilize my services. And then the other way that I would say is probably more common, what most people come to me for, is more of a coaching model where people are wanting to understand and learn how to harness their nervous system cycles and how to promote their own self-healing. And so I offer education around how our body works, how our nervous system works, and how we really can tune into working with the way that our nervous system communicates through sensations in the body and following and tracking different ways that our protective responses have been thwarted or stuck. When we've experienced trauma or upsetting situations, or when we've grown up in different family environments that maybe created different ways of thinking and being, there are things that get stuck in the body. And through learning our unique cycles and how things get stuck and how we can follow and complete different responses, I help people connect into that so that they can do it themselves.
Oh, that's really cool. Because like this is stuff that I had no understanding of a few years ago.
Yeah.
But it's been really fascinating that as I'm getting more into holistic care and helping people understand how to live a pain-free life and or just a healthy life. I'm finding that not only is pain a big problem, but fatigue and energy are really big chronic issues. It not necessarily have to be chronic, but it's just prevalent, right? It's like, wow,
so prevalent.
There's so many people that are stressed out and just exhausted, that it's like, wow, I know there's the things we talked about, that people are they're dehydrated and they don't get the sun and they don't get grounded. That's part of it. But then our food supply is really horrible right now. All right. So 70% of our food is ultra processed food. So people aren't getting the right nutrients that they need.
Yeah.
And just combine all these things. Our water's not very good either. So, our water's bad, our food's bad, our air's bad. It's like, wow.
A lot of factors.
It's hard to live a healthy life. So what do you do with people with fatigue and energy? What have you found helpful?
Yeah. So when a nervous system is healthy and working well, we have energy. We can get up and go in the morning. We have aliveness. We can connect into our creativity and be able to feel that sort of organic pull from within us. And then when our nervous system is healthy, we also can rest and sleep deeply and be able to restore. And so with people that are coming in with burnout, because that definitely was my journey, I was completely burnt out. That was what was causing the majority of all of my issues,
right.
Is really helping to reconnect to nourishing our nervous system and looking at what that means. And a lot of those pieces are basic kinds of things we've talked about, of reconnecting to how our nervous system is communicating to us. Are we ignoring when we have to go to the bathroom? Are we eating when we're hungry? Are we resting when we're tired? Like really restoring some of the ways that we've learned and we've been conditioned to override and ignore what's actually being communicated. And through healing our nervous system over time, that creates more capacity in a body so that we don't have collapse, so that we're not moving into collapse, because that's what burnout is. It's a huge collapse over long term that's stacked in our system. And naturally we go through like expansion and contraction cycles. And what happens is that for most of us, particularly if you're listening to this in the United States, contraction, we don't honor any contraction. We're just in going, doing more, bigger, don't stop. You're lazy if you rest, work hard. You've got to push through. Same with these athletes, but I would also entrepreneurs, like don't stop, like kind of that bro culture of pushing. That's no contraction, no space for contraction. And so when we don't create space for contraction, the body moves into collapse. And that's what burnout is. And so when we heal from that, the starting point is all about space, right? Creating space so that the body has time to rest, so that the body has time to eat healthy food, so that the body has time to go for movement if it needs movement. But really the main point underneath all of it has to do with listening, like reconnecting to actually hearing what is being asked internally. Because so many of us are like very focused outward, like what we need to do or what we think we should be doing or what other people are telling us to do that's important. Even in the self-help arena, right? We're constantly looking outward for other people to tell us what is right.
Right.
And so a huge piece of this, particularly with healing and recovering from burnout, is this reconnection to what is actually true for me, what is actually being asked of me from my own body.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I love the fact that a lot of what you just discussed was talking about the importance of that middle piece, right? Which is you need to rest, right?
Yeah.
And most athletes and, like you mentioned, entrepreneurs, they're just go, 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 go.
Right.
And me, as coming from an athletic background, I realized early on how important that rest period is, right? That's why professional bodybuilders and others, they know when to push their body, and they
Yes.
know that they need to rest and recover in order for it to get better, right? In order for them to get stronger, in order for them to get faster.
Yes.
You have to have that rest for your body to repair before it can go do its next AKA workout and or AKA meeting if you're an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like
and
the
it's
same.
active.
Yeah.
It's an active state. So many of us think that rest is doing nothing, or because we've been told, I grew up in a family where you don't rest until everything is done. You get home from school and you do all your homework and you go to your activities, and then, don't forget your chores, right? So many of us grew up in those environments. And so it's really flipping the script and reframing, like rest is an active state. It's actually doing something very productive. And for myself, I had to reconnect with that as an entrepreneur. The first 3 years of my business, I found myself in the same burnout pattern that I had when I was working at the school, and had to reassess.
Reset.
And now I have to take a day off. I can't even tell you how productive I am the day after my day off. It's mind blowing.
It is really interesting too. It's like my brother is a pastor, an online minister, and he takes the Sabbath very seriously. And it's like, and it's one, it's biblical, but two, it's really interesting that when he takes that time off, he's so much more productive, like you just said, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I need to do better at that. I find myself not taking that day. I do take hours off during the day and periods that are kind of like my rest period, and then I can still go. So, but I need to get better at taking a little bit longer.
Hard. I feel you on that. It's so hard.
It is, isn't it? It is. You always say, "Oh yeah, I'll take a day off," and then it's like, "Oh, but hey, I got these things to do." Right.
And particularly when we're recovering from burnout, one day off isn't going to cut it. I think a lot of us have this misconception with, I'm taking an afternoon off, or, I'm having a day off. But if we have long-term burnout for decades of not stopping, from decades of not listening, we have to bring in patience to our bodies and our systems, and we need more. And so for me, with the spaces, I'm all about, where can I weave in little spaces in my day, moments, minutes, an hour here, or during my week, where am I getting an afternoon? During my week, where's my day off? Right. And then for me, I also go quarterly. Once a quarter, I take a full weekend away. Nice. I go away to a hotel with a clean bathtub, because I live with gross boys. So and no work. I'm not allowed to work. And it's once a quarter I get that space, and I have it on a calendar, and I can see it. My brain knows it's coming. My nervous system knows it's coming. And this is going to be my third year doing it. That has been pretty significantly life-changing for me.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. So I love that idea, and I think that we definitely want to highlight that as part of this conversation, because I think that's amazing that you've done that. It's really really smart thing to do. And I highly recommend, I don't do it, so I need to do it. So I recommend to myself that I should start doing that.
Yeah. And it's amazing, like the relief of actually putting it in a calendar and blocking it off and
Right.
booking something is just as important as going away.
That's true.
Like me knowing in November that in the third week in January, I was going to get a weekend to myself after all the holiday
Right.
stuff, right? That was huge for my sanity.
And it's interesting how your mind works too. Is you see that on your calendar, you're like, oh, hey, it's coming, right?
For sure.
I love that. I love that. So we only have a few minutes left. So what else? I know you do a ton of other things, right? You own the 2 businesses, and you've had this amazing journey, and you're really helping a lot of people, all the way from children to entrepreneurs to high level athletes. What else would you like to share with us today?
This feels important. We've talked about so many different things. I think what feels important is that like change is possible, and being in a body that doesn't hurt all the time is possible. I think for so many of us, when we navigate chronic illness and we spin in the frustrations of not knowing what things are and when they're going to get better, it can be so overwhelming and so defeating. And so we have this beautiful mirror neuron thing that happens when we hear other people's stories, where it shows and proves to ourselves that it's possible. And so I just would love to be that mirror for anyone watching, of really feeling like I wasn't ever going to feel better, or be in a body that didn't have pain or didn't have discomfort or that felt tired all the time. And I'm really a living example and proof that it's possible. And so being able to hold that hope is very important when we're on our healing journeys and when we're wanting to meet different goals, particularly around our health and our wellness. We have to be able to be in that energy of hope and faith and trust that there is something that's different that could be possible.
Very, very, very well said. I love that. And man, what a pleasure to have you on the podcast. So how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. So you can find me. So my website, sarahvittori.com. And then I also have peakperformwithsarah.com. Now also my website is competitiveedge.com. It's my dad's website, but we're in the middle of revamping it, but there's lots of great resources for all different kinds of people on all of those platforms. And then I'm on Facebook at Expand Your Capacity, and I'm on Instagram at sarah.vittori. So any of those places, or send me a message. And definitely Google Melt in your area. There might be an instructor near you, but I work virtually also. You can get the products, easily have a virtual session and learn the different treatments, and then you can develop your practice at home. And then for those of you who want to fly out to New England or who live in the New England area, I offer weekend customized one-on-one retreats for entrepreneurs. So I've set that up just how I like to take them. You get the space in an Airbnb, and then I come in and offer hands-on healing and any other development that you want to work on for shifting patterns and helping to heal your body and your mind. So
that's fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that we have all of those links in the show notes. Awesome. So that people can easily access you. But wow, what a pleasure. And thank you so much for joining us on the I Am Pain Free podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right. God bless. We'll talk soon. As many of you know, my focus at the I Am Pain Free podcast is help as many people get pain free as possible. And we strive to use all natural and alternative therapies to accomplish that goal. Well, today I'm thrilled to introduce to you a revolutionary product that aligns perfectly with our mission of natural health and well-being. It's called Exodus by Exodus Strong. At Exodus Strong, their mission is to help you break free from the grip of big pharma and embrace natural solutions that promote vibrant health. With a foundation rooted in the wisdom of the Bible, the all-natural supplement harnesses the power of 7 key ingredients specifically mentioned in the scriptures. The flagship product, Exodus, is designed to be transformational, providing benefits such as energy enhancement, stress relief, blood sugar stabilization, pain relief, and anti-inflammation. So join the movement, right, to help them get 1 million new people to read the Bible every day and transform their health naturally. When you purchase Exodus, use code IAPF at checkout to receive a special free gift with your order. It's time to exit the old you and step into a new chapter of vitality and well-being. to get there, you go to ExodusStrong.com. So it's Exodus, ExodusStrong.com. And check out and use that IAPF for the I Am Pain Free podcast. And then you'll experience the benefits of the Exodus mineral blend. This mineral blend is amazing. It's got the molecular hydrogen generating formula that's backed by hundreds of scientific studies. So begin your journey feeling great and looking great. Don't miss the opportunity to take control of your health with the all natural way. So go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it.